Welcome back to Timeless Tales by Pearl. I hope you enjoyed the story and learned something from it as well. In the city of Umache, Madam Agatha was a legend. Her name commanded respect, and her elegant mansion stood like a beacon of wealth and influence. At every community gathering, she dazzled the crowd with her graceful composure and expensive lace gowns. Women envied her poise. Men admired her intellect. Known for her charity works, she was celebrated for offering scholarships to young girls from impoverished families. To the outside world, Madame Agatha was a saint, a woman who uplifted the downtrodden. But behind the glittering facade lay a dark secret. Madame Agatha was the mastermind of an underground operation, luring girls into donating their eggs under false pretenses. She promised these girls scholarships and a brighter future, only to exploit their trust for her financial gain. But if only they knew what happened behind the gladded gates of her mansion. Amaka, an 18-year-old girl from a struggling family, sat on the floor of her tiny one-room apartment, staring at the flyer she had received. It bore the words, "Scholarship Opportunity for Exceptional Girls." Her heart raced with hope. This was the chance she prayed for, a way to escape poverty and make her family proud. Her mother, weak from years of hard labor, nodded in encouragement. "God has finally answered our prayers," she said, clutching Amaka's hands. Amaka attended the seminar led by Madam Agatha herself. Captivated by the woman's eloquence and promises, the words "helping infertile couples" sounded quite noble to her, and the medical terms were too complex for Amaka to understand. She signed the papers without hesitation, believing she was stepping into a brighter future. Little did she know, this decision would change her life forever. Amaka found herself lying on a sterile hospital bed, surrounded by masked doctors. She felt uneasy, but reminded herself of Madam Agatha's soothing words. "You are doing a great thing, my dear. This will make you a hero." The procedure was quick, but left her feeling drained and disoriented. She stumbled out of the clinic, clutching her stomach, while a nurse handed her a small envelope with money for transport. Days later, Amaka's body rebelled. She experienced sharp pains and frequent dizziness. Her mother, alarmed, took her to the local clinic, but the doctors could not pinpoint the cause. Amaka began to suspect that something was wrong, that Madam Agatha's promises were not as noble as they seemed. As her condition worsened, Amaka decided to revisit Madam Agatha's office. She found the doctors in the office, and the doors were locked, and the building was quiet and airy. Panic set in. The once accessible mentor was suddenly unreachable. Her friend Chika, who had warned her about the trusting of strangers, listened quietly as Amaka recounted everything. "I told you to be careful, but it's not your fault," Chika said, her voice heavy with concern. Determined to find answers, the two friends began asking questions around the neighborhood. They uncovered whispers of other girls who had gone through the same ordeal. Some had moved away, others had disappeared entirely. The puzzle pieces began to fall in place, and Amaka realized the horrifying truth. Madam Agatha's operation wasn't about scholarships, it was a scam. Amaka and Chika decided to gather evidence, so they contacted one of the girls who had been promised a scholarship. Kemi, now a shadow of her former self, revealed her own traumatic experience. "I was a fool to believe her," Kemi said, tears streaming down her face. She handed Amaka a copy of the consent form she had signed, mentioning nothing about scholarships, but contained vague medical terms about donations. Armed with this evidence, Amaka and Chika reached out to the local journalist known for exposing corruption. The journalists, hesitant at first, agreed to look at the matter after hearing their stories. However, this act of bravery would soon put Amaka and her friends in great danger. The journalist, Mr. Ikenna, was known for his fearless reporting, but even he hesitated after hearing about Madam Agatha. "Do you know who you're up against?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He explained that Madam Agatha's influence stretched beyond Umeche. She has powerful allies, he warned. But Amaka stood her ground. I don't care, she said firmly. This is more about me. It is about all the girls who she ruined. Her determination moved Ikenna, who agreed to dig deeper. He advised them to stay low while he investigated, but the warnings came too late. Madam Agatha's men were already watching. One night on her way back to Chika's house, Amaka noticed a black SUV following her. Her heart pounded as she quickened her pace. The SUV sped up, its headlights glaring like lights in the dark. Panicking, Amaka ducked into an alley and hid behind a pile of old crates. She could hear footsteps approaching and held her breath, praying they wouldn't find her. After what felt like hours, the footsteps receded and the SUV drove off. Shaken but unharmed, Amaka ran straight to Chika's house. They know, she gasped. Trembling, Chika hugged her tightly. Fear etched her face. We have to be careful, she whispered. Meanwhile, Ikenna's investigation uncovered a trail of deceit. Madam Agatha wasn't working alone. She was part of a global black market that trafficked human eggs and organs. The operation was vast, with clients ranging from wealthy families to underground clinics abroad. This isn't just about Umeche, Ikenna told Amaka and Chika. The realization that they were fighting something much bigger than one woman terrified them. Chika suggested dropping the case, but Amaka refused. If we don't fight, who will? She argued. Inspired by her courage, Ikenna vowed to help them expose the truth no matter the cost. News of Madam Agatha's operation began to spread quietly. Girls who had suffered in silence started coming forward, sharing their stories with Ikenna. Each testimony painted a grim picture of manipulation, pain, and shattered dreams. The journalists compiled the evidence into a detailed report and sent it to a trusted editor. But before the story could be published, Madam Agatha's eyelash struck. Ikenna's office was ransacked, his files destroyed. Undeterred, he returned to social media, uploading snippets of the girls' stories. The posts gained traction and soon whispers turned into outrage. Madam Agatha's carefully curated image began to crack. Realizing her empire was under threat, Madam Agatha launched her counterattack. She bribed local officials, discredited Ikenna as a fraud, and painted Amaka as an ungrateful liar. She's just a greedy girl who wanted free money, Agatha declared during a televised interview. Her crocodile tears convinced many. The backlash was a swift one. Strangers harassed Amaka's family, calling them opportunists. Even Chika's parents warned her to stay away. You're putting us all in danger, they said. But Chika refused to abandon her friend. Together, the two girls vowed to keep fighting, even as the world seemed to turn against them. Just when all hope seemed to be lost, a surprising ally emerged. Chief Nnaji, a respected elder who had once been a close friend of Madam Agatha, reached out to Amaka. I knew something was wrong, but I was too afraid to speak, he confessed. Chief Nnaji provided crucial documents linking Madam Agatha to international transactions and hidden bank accounts. With this new evidence, Ikenna and Amaka built a stronger case. The tide began to shift, but the fight was far from over. Madam Agatha still had powerful friends and she wasn't going down without a fight. As the evidence against Madam Agatha piled up, whispers of her true nature began to spread in Umeche. Market women and community elders debated in hushed tones. Could the woman they once idolized truly be involved in such evil? Some refused to believe it. It's all lies, a trader argued. Madam Agatha has done more for this town than anyone else. But others weren't so sure. One elderly woman whose granddaughter had disappeared after receiving one of Agatha's scholarships voiced her doubts. There is something she's hiding, she murmured. The cracks in Madam Agatha's reputation were beginning to show, but she wasn't ready to lose her grip just yet. Madam Agatha, sensing the walls closing in, turned her attention inward. She called an emergency meeting with her most trusted allies, demanding loyalty. I have made all of you rich, she said coldly. Now it's your turn to protect me. Unbeknownst to her, some of those allies were growing relentless. The mounting scrutiny threatened their own secrets and they began to consider cutting ties with Madam Agatha. One of them, a young lawyer named Kunle, secretly contacted Ikenna. "I am tired of covering for her," Kunle said. "I have documents that could bring her down." Kunle's betrayal was the breakthrough Amaka and Ikenna needed. The documents he provided detailed years of fraudulent transactions, including payments to international buyers. Armed with this evidence, Ikenna prepared a damning expose. But Madam Agatha wasn't going down without a fight. She called on her remaining allies to discredit Kunle, painting him as a disgruntled former employee seeking revenge. The strategy worked for a time, but the evidence Kunle provided was too strong to ignore. Rumors swirled, and even some of Madam Agatha's staunchest supporters began to distance themselves from her. In the heart of Umeche, an informal court of elders convened to discuss the growing scandal. Amaka, accompanied by Chika and Ikenna, presented her case. She recounted her ordeal and raw emotion with her shaky, but she steadied her voice. "I believed her lies," she said, "and I suffered for it, but I wouldn't let her hurt anyone else." The elders listened intently, their faces grave. Madam Agatha summoned to defend herself and denied every single thing. "These are baseless accusations," she said with her voice gripping with indignation. But the tide was turning, and for the first time, the people of Umeche began to see through her mask. Late one night, as Amaka walked home from another meeting, she was ambushed by two masked men. They grabbed her, demanding she drop the case about Madam Agatha. "You're poking your nose where it doesn't belong," one of them said. Amaka fought back, screaming and kicking, until a group of passersby intervened. The men fled, but the attack left Amaka shaking. She was getting desperate. Chika and her other friends decided to help Amaka, protect her. The incident only strengthened Amaka's resolve. "If she thinks she can scare me, she's wrong," she declared. With each passing day, Madam Agatha's influence waned. Businesses that once thrived under her patronage began to suffer as clients pulled out. Her charitable foundations lost donors, and her mansion that was once a symbol of power now seemed like a fortress of siege. But Agatha wasn't ready to surrender. She doubled down, bribing officials and intimidating witnesses. Her desperation made her dangerous, and Amaka knew that this fight was far from over. "She'll keep coming after us," Amaka told Ikenna. "We need to hit her where it hurts." Amaka and Chika, with Ikenna's guidance, began digging into Madam Agatha's past. They uncovered a trail of broken promises and silenced victims. One name stood out: Nkechi, a woman who had once been Agatha's closest confidant, but had mysteriously vanished years ago. After weeks of searching, they found Nkechi living in a remote village as a shadow of her former self. She hesitated to speak at first, but eventually opened up. "Agatha ruined my life," she said, her voice trembling. Nkechi's testimony revealed the full extent of Madam Agatha's crimes, providing the final piece of the puzzle needed to bring her down. Nkechi's testimony was a bombshell. She revealed how Madam Agatha had started her operation years ago, using charm and deceit to manipulate those around her. "I helped her in the beginning," Nkechi admitted, her eyes filled with regret. "I thought we were helping women, but when I discovered the truth, I tried to leave. She destroyed me." With Nkechi's story, Amaka and Ikenna created a compelling report that painted a complete picture of who Madam Agatha is. They shared it with the media and local leaders, setting the stage for a public reckoning. The momentum grew, and more girls stepped forward to share their stories. Madam Agatha's world was crumbling, but she still had a few cards to play. Concerned, Madam Agatha tried to flee the country. Her allies arranged a private jet to whisk her away, but the plan was unraveled by Kunle. "You can't do this," she screamed, her elegant composure shattered as she was arrested at the airport. And for the first time, the community felt a glimmer of hope, but Amaka knew that the fight wasn't over. Madam Agatha's trial became the talk of the nation. The courtrooms bled with her news. Agatha, dressed in a somber black suit, maintaining her innocence. "I've dedicated my life to helping young girls," she said, her voice trembling with feigned sincerity. But the evidence was damning. Amaka and other victims testified, and their voices were unwavering despite the intimidation they faced. Nkechi's testimony was the most powerful, detailing years of manipulation and greed. Agatha's lawyers tried to discredit the witnesses, but the public had already turned against her. Amaka's world was rocked when Chika disappeared without warning days later. Rumors swirled that she had been bribed by Madam Agatha's allies to withdraw her support. Amaka refused to believe it. Chika would never betray me, she said. But when Chika reappeared, her silence was deafening. Confronting her friend, Amaka demanded answer. Chika broke down into tears. They threatened my family, she confessed. I didn't have a choice. Though hurt, Amaka forgave her. We're in this together, she said. Chika, filled with guilt, vowed to stand by her side no matter what. As the trial continued, Ikenna's reports on social media gained traction. The stories of the victims resonated with people across the country, sparking an outrage with calls for justice. Madam Agatha's name, once synonymous with grace and philanthropy, became a symbol of greed and corruption. And the power of the people was undeniable, and for the first time the community stood united against injustice. After weeks of intense proceeding, the judge delivered the verdict. Madam Agatha was found guilty on multiple charges, including human trafficking, fraud, and exploitation. She was sentenced to life in prison. From the fall to grace was complete. The courtroom erupted in applause, and Amaka felt a weight lift off her shoulders. We did it, she whispered to Chika, tears streaming down her face. But she knew this was only the beginning. There were still countless other victims in need of help. Amaka returned to her village a hero, but she still struggled with the emotional scars of her ordeal. The victory felt hollow at times, knowing how many lives have been destroyed. You've done something incredible, her mother told her. You've given these girls a voice. Inspired by her journey, Amaka decided to dedicate her life to fighting exploitation with the help of Ikenna and other activists. She founded an organization to support victims of trafficking and empower young women to speak out. We've come to the end of this wonderful story. I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this. Please do make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.